It is cold today. So I have my heater on, but then I turned it off. So hello, I'm waiting for you guys to all show up so that I could leap over here and hit the mute. Oops. Oh my God, I just screwed everything up. Sorry, I tried to hit mute and in fact, go to Fiverr.com. All right, this is a nightmare. Hold on. I just messed that up entirely. Wow, that's a new one for me to mess up. Now I have to find the right feed to kill the volume. Oh, there it is. And there's already 5 of you here. This couldn't be more embarrassing. Oh, the humanity. Well, that was a very smooth start. So, oh, Tony's here already and Shannon's here. Hello. Okay. Allow me to explain why I'm even less professional than usual. Hello, hi from Memphis, hi Atlanta, everyone's coming in. I didn't even bother putting on makeup today because I 2 nights in a row have been up. Well, 2 nights ago I was working until 1, dealing with a mess of that I'll tell you about in a second. And then I had to be up by 7. And today I was up at 5. So I am not looking good today. I don't care. Hello, Wisconsin. Hello, Oklahoma. Oh, Kelly's in the house. Because I've had such a super fun time the last couple days. And normally I don't go into how the sausage is made as far as my profession. But since this morning's just been a nonstop delish fest of mess, I'll tell you a little bit about how the sausage is made, which is, as some of you know, I've launched like my most ambitious, most underpriced, to be honest, video sweater class ever, Affinity, the monster that is 12 sizes. It can be a pullover, it can be a cardigan, it can have waist shaping, it can have not waist shaping, it can be A-line shape, it's children's sizes. I found in the past few days how many errors my extremely expensive tech editor put into the pattern without track changes on. So I didn't know certain things were changed. So I've been spending, luckily, with the exception of 1, none of them you've actually gotten to. They're all going to be fixed before the Sunday release of the sweater fronts. And also, luckily, because I filmed these video tutorials on sweater mapping, which I've been doing, and because I was using the edited pattern to make my maps, that's when I found some of the changes to my pattern that weren't my pattern. But anyway, so that's what I've been doing. It's been really fun. We're here now. We're all here together, and you guys are been great. And the one thing that I will say about all of you and the awesomeness that is all of you, I guess knitwear designers, knitting teachers, and knitters, they select, they find each other. So the knitters that are with me are the knitters that want to learn things and that are awesome and adventuresome and amazing, which also means they're kind of great people. So, like I said, so far, every single mistake that the tech editor has added to my pattern, you haven't gotten to yet, and I'm fixing before you even see, with the exception of 1, which was fixed right away. But 1 knitter did, in fact, knit some rib and then had to take out, and her attitude was That's okay. It gives me another chance to practice your German twisted cast on in pattern. So that was just the nicest thing. So anyway, oh, it's so nice reading your comments. Oh, Jan, that's so sweet. Anyway, the work that's being done so far is amazing. So if you haven't checked the Ravelry group, even if you haven't cast on yet, if you got Affinity but you haven't started it yet, if you want some inspiration, go to the Ravelry group and look at the pictures and chatter thread. You can't believe, I mean, some of the like one knitter's already up to the armholes in a day. She rocked the back and was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go to bed now. I mean, just I was without speech. Anyway, so here we are all together again, and it is very cold here in my office. And I did turn the heater on for a second, but then it annoyed me. But we have somebody here as our guest, and right before we went live, she hollered at me her, well, I guess catchphrase. So by the way, before I introduce her, if anybody knows what you would say to somebody that is cold, type it into the notes. I'm just curious if anybody knows what a certain someone would say to a certain someone who is cold. And that certain someone is our guest today. She is amazing. She is beloved by knitters everywhere. She is the host of the greatest knitting podcast in the history of podcasts. And by the way, calling it a knitting podcast is not really, it's so much more than a knitting podcast. Oh, snap, you guys are typing it in. Put on a sweater. That's what they're for. Exactly. And with that, let me introduce the one, the only, Brenda Dayne. Look,
Hi,
Brenda,
Patty.
they knew. It's coming in. Put on a sweater.
I love it.
Put on a sweater.
I love
That's what it's
it.
for. Put on a sweater. That's what it's for. You should see after we go live. It takes about 2 hours for the live comments to publish, but you'll be able to read people.
I'll be in bed. I'll read them in the morning when I get up. Yeah, it's dark here.
All over the world typing, put on a sweater, put on a sweater. That's what it's for. Oh my God.
I love it.
Look, everyone, it's Brenda Dayne. Hello.
Hi, guys. It's really lovely to be here, Patty. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's so lovely.
This is my first YouTube live anything. Seriously, I've never done this before. All week I'm thinking, I wonder if she's going to send me a link or.
Oh, yeah, I do that on Monday.
Yeah. So it all worked out just fine. I just had to click a link.
Just had to click
set up my office.
Oh, Shannon said, I've missed Brenda so much. And Spinning Buddy says, I've listened to every episode from the beginning. Oh, now Spinning Buddy, just curious. Did you start again? Because I know a lot of people, I wondered about that when, you know how Breaking Bad, there was I don't know whether it was a contract thing or what, but there was a huge break between the penultimate season and the last season. It was a really long time. So tons of people in that time went back to the very beginning.
I know.
And watched the whole thing. So I'm wondering how many people are doing that.
I don't know. I have had a couple of emails and comments on the blog from people who found me after the relaunch and are starting from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. No. If you haven't, if you just discovered it,
yeah,
you have. I would say
one woman was so sweet. She left this lovely comment and said that she was listening from the beginning, and I'm making all of these sideways digs towards George W. Bush in the early days. And she's like, it's just so quaint. And I'm like, yes, the halcyon days of George Bush.
Forgot. Right, because there was
that was the worst that we thought it could ever get.
Yeah. And then we were wrong.
How wrong we were.
Other podcast that you oh God, I can't remember the name of it, that you introduced on your podcast, because there were a bunch of podcasts that I got turned on to from you. There were
Yeah.
your friends and it was the one about the couple that moved to Canada.
Quirky nomads.
Oh, quirky nomads. And their intro said, blah, blah, blah. And then we did. It
Yeah,
ended.
if the Republicans get any worse, we're moving to Canada.
And
And
then
then they did.
we
Yeah.
did. Quirky nomads.
They're
Oh,
still in Canada. Sage isn't podcasting anymore, but she's storytelling, and she just won a Toronto Moth Grand Slam storytelling.
because
The girl is good. She's a great storyteller. She's amazing.
How I feel about the moth. Of
I know.
my deep moth obsession. I had a now I'm going to forget her name, but back in my yarn store days, I held a storytelling event, and it was it was hosted by one of the moth storytellers who helped mold. It was called. I did spinning a yarn. I'm blanking on her name. She's so good. She told the story. Do you remember the moth about it was a glass eye and Kennedy? They were watching, they were on a beach and they were watching the Kennedys.
Watching the Kennedys, yes.
And she was also the same storyteller that told about her, she and her brother trying to get to Fenway to see, oh, she's so good.
I can't remember her name either.
But anyway, that's when I was introducing you and I said, knitting podcast, I always feel weird about describing it as a knitting podcast. Because
I know.
it just like, there's certain, like, I don't cook. I don't give a whit about cooking.
I know.
I'm not even that much of a foodie, but I really liked the new show. I think it was on Hulu. Padma's show, Taste the Nation. And Taste the Nation is about cooking the way Cast On's about knitting. It's the path to tell, it's the entry path to telling the stories she wanted to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
Because I just tell the stories that I want to tell.
Because it's really hard to explain why non-knitters listen to it. If you haven't heard it, you would think that was a weird thing.
Yeah. No, I had, I had heard from attorneys and airline pilots and, like people who just, their occupations are so far outside my realm of experience and who were firm, fans. They were listeners of the podcast in the early days. It's changed a lot. I mean, I've noticed that since I've been back, it's changed a lot. There's a lot more competition for people's time. I'm so grateful for every person that downloads Cast On and listens because their time is a gift, They are choosing to squander a perfectly good hour with me. It is stories about knitting and about whales and about my life, So that's a gift. I never take that for granted. Yeah.
By the way, all you folks out there in Radio Land, in YouTube land, if you have a favorite episode, put it in the notes. I would love to hear. So what do you think, other than, it just reminds me, you were talking about how much has changed and that there's so much content out there. What do you think are some of the, not the industry, but for you personally, like your relationship to the stories, your relationship to the mic, what was the hardest thing for you to kind of what was the hardest thing about getting back in the saddle, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Okay, well, this is really interesting because this is exactly what I was talking about today on the podcast that is coming out actually, it'll be out tomorrow. For Patreon people, it'll be out tomorrow. And then there's a new one coming out this weekend.
I was going to say, you mean I get it tomorrow? Because I'm a Patreon.
You get it tomorrow.
I'll explain what
I'm talking about
in a second to you guys.
So the thing that is hardest about coming back for me is that it's been 6 years and I haven't used any of the tools. So I had to relearn how to set up my mic for the first, I mean, I really felt like kindergarten. It's been really weird. And then also I had to replace Kit that just didn't work anymore. I had to relearn how to edit audio. I had to relearn all the audio. I mean, like all of the basic stuff. So in a lot of ways, it feels like I'm starting, not starting again, but starting just like I felt, just like I felt. And then that's part of why it's taken so long for like this podcast to come out this month. I haven't really put anything out in November because, well, there's a lot of reasons. There's mental health things that are going on because of the pandemic. We'll talk about that. I think it's really important that we all acknowledge that the world is hard right now. Okay.
Oh, we've talked about that on this channel a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, that's
there's
why it's
that.
called what it's called, Quarantine Live. It all started
Yeah.
with me losing my mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, the guy who's like delivering the packages, how you doing? I'm fine. How's your mental health? Oh God, it's like everybody. So there's that. There was, and I hate to say this, but there was a dickhead comment left on iTunes that normally would just roll right off of me,
You're
not bother
obsessed
me,
over it.
but that I obsessed over slightly. Yeah, just a little.
I totally know what I totally hear you.
Yeah. So the comment was that good, but not as good as the host thinks it is. And that stuck like a burr under my saddle, right? So to channel this, I sent the comment to Dave from Chub Creek. You remember Dave?
Oh God, I love Chub. Oh yes.
So I got in touch with him, sent him a text and said, can you just record this one line for me, please? Good, but not as good as the host thinks it is. And I just said, it's a comment I got. He's like, you got a dickhead comment. Of course I'll do it. So he's going to record that for me and I'll play it in the next, not this podcast, but the next one. So that was part of channeling it.
That's even just like that sounds. I forgot about him. We were talking about the other podcasts. These are like friends that I like.
They really are. They really.
Yes.
And I love that I'm still in touch with all these people. That I've stayed in touch with all these people. It's been really great. So there was that, and then that comment that kind of got under my skin, and there was just something in the back of my head that was sort of like, well, am I not as good as I think I am? How true is this? Because I thought I was pretty good. So I got out of this shame spiral by re-listening to old episodes of Cast On. And the person that I heard that I'm listening to is like, almost like, it's like someone else, that Brenda, especially toward the end, was at the top of her game. She was confident. She knew what the hell she was doing with audio. She didn't have to mess around with settings. I mean, 9 years of podcasting and she nailed it. And I thought, that person is still here. And that's how I got past not as good as she thinks she is, Also, I was talking to somebody who said, Brene Brown says anyone who is like judgy about you is based on shame that they feel about themselves. And that made me feel.
I really want you to listen to, I know I've said this to you before, but listen to the podcast I Weigh.
Okay.
Which is all about, I mean, I Weigh is, it's Jamila Jamil, and it's.
I love her.
I love her. I'm like, I would genuinely make out with her, but like for her brain. I would make out with her brain. But it's I weigh, meaning how much do you weigh? So, so it's about mental health. It's about shame. It's about the things we do to ourselves. And the name comes from how, Hollywood was obsessed with her weight, and she's overweight and she can't fit in it. And so she started, when people would ask, like, what do you weigh? She would answer with her value. She'd say, I weigh my loyalty to my friends. I weigh so that's where the name comes from.
I love that. That's really good.
At the end of every episode, she asks her guests, so what do you weigh? And you list all the things that make you great.
Yeah.
So by the way, speaking of old episodes, No Matching Socks sang this for all my grandchildren. Knitting in Trafalgar Square.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh, Liddy said, please don't take that crap to heart. So I will say, Liddy, and to everybody else,
Yeah.
Again, it's so interesting because for years, the pandemic's just made everything different. But for years, like my professional face is one thing, my personal face is another. You don't, and for sure, I never talk about how the sausage is made. I've always been a little like, oh, I can't believe the people that, reveal too much, that complain about their employers, that complain. I just never do that. But it's like all of us spending time together in this crazy pants time. I will tell you that I recently decided to answer an email that normally I would have ignored.
Really?
And
can you talk about it?
Yeah, in a nutshell, it was a very unkind email about YouTube. About first of all, she said she has two things to say. One is that how annoying it is when I say hello to people as they come in, and I say, "Oh, hello, California. Oh, hi from Wales. Hi from," like, yes, the internet is all over the world. Get over it. So she told me to get over it. And then she went on to say something very unkind about someone that I was speaking about on the podcast, and that this person was rude and passive aggressive and terrible. So at first I just, answered passive aggressively, like, thank you so much for your kind input. And then I emailed again, and I was like, you know what, on second thought,
keep it. I don't need to hear it.
Because she had said, I have two observations. One is, you should stop naming where people are from. It's annoying. Get over it. And then the unkind thing about this other person. So I emailed back and I said, upon reflection, I have two observations. One, you take the time to email me about someone else being unkind or rude or passive aggressive, and then you are rude and unkind and not passive but aggressive to me about my free content that I offer you. So I would say, A, look to yourself, and B, I notice I don't see you on any customer list that I have. If you don't enjoy my free content, A, get over it. B, perhaps you might enjoy some of my paid content where I'm not welcoming live listeners as they come in the room. And I said, finally, I do hope that you will think about the fact that there's a real person that reads all of these emails that you just probably whip off quickly without. So people think we're bulletproof. People think, I'll take your free content.
The comment, though, that the rudeness or the judgment that's coming from other people is based on some area of their own lives that they feel shame about. So I took a look at that comment, not as whatever she thinks she is, good, but not as good as she thinks she is. And I thought to myself, this person was told, who do you think you are? Sit down, shut up, don't have a voice, how dare you? Who do you think you are? That's where that comes from. So that allowed me to have a little more compassion for the dickhead.
I do think that there's a difference between, I think there's a real value in understanding where bad behavior comes from.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a value in distinguishing between understanding where it comes from and accepting the behavior.
Yeah.
You can understand where it comes from without accepting it and eating it and have it sit inside your belly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ruth is asking, how do we find your podcast? You can find it at anywhere, right? You can search iTunes, Spotify,
Stitcher. The only place you small correction, you cannot find it on Spotify. And there's a very good reason for this. Back at the beginning, I pulled a lot of music off of the PodSafe Music Network, all the music I played. Spotify, the contract with them is, they're very specific about music rights. You have to have the rights to the things that you play. I did when I originally played them, but I don't know if that's true anymore. And because they will take me down if there's somebody, files a DMCA takedown against the podcast, boom, it shuts it down. So I didn't want to risk that happening.
But you can also find the feed directly from your site, right?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Because if anyone out there, for some reason, I always look to the right because that's where the comments are, as if they're actually there. So
no, I'm going to look over there too. So anyone over here? Uh-oh.
Because what? Why do you make the uh-oh?
Because you froze.
Oh, I did? Oh, look, it says my internet connection is unstable. Not unlike myself. That's weird.
I was not going to go there.
I never get there when I'm live, but here, you know what? I'm going to check one thing. I'm going to check to make sure that I turned off. No, I did. I was a good girl. I always turn off my backup programs so that they don't, go in the background. No, I was good. That is off. And that one is off. No, I was a good girl. I turned them off. Well, I don't know. Anyway, yes, I would for sure go back to the beginning, says I. Liddy says, I'm a psych nurse and have had everything evil said to me. You're smart to know it's not you. Yes, set limits.
What is that, Jenny?
Liddy.
Liddy, you're an angel. All right? You're a goddamn saint.
And Crookedness says, I found the podcast on Google Podcasts, but it won't add the episodes to my queue. It does on iTunes, for sure.
Yeah, it does.
And I can even go back, and I didn't know this. So they're not there because I've listened to them, but they are there. So I can click show all episodes on the iTunes app, and I can still go back and get everything. They're there. They're just not showing as pending because I've listened to them already. So there.
That might answer a question. But again, this is like, I'm back at the beginning. I don't have the answers to this. Just like when somebody would say, I can't get the podcast, I would go, I don't know why. There must be some reason. I know my feed is good. There must be a reason, but I don't know what it is. I really don't. Now, but write me, okay? You can get me at Brenda@caston.com, cast-on.com. Tell me what app you're using. Tell me where you're having problems. Get in touch. I'll try to help you figure it out.
Oh yeah, Linda says that yes, you can get them all on the Apple Podcast. Yeah, that's what I thought. Now, Marcia said, could I give more knitting bio on your guest? That is the knitting bio, really, this is the host of Cast On. So we all know Brenda from the podcast Cast On. Brenda's, when did I, what I don't know in the land of knitting bios? Do I know this? No, I don't think I know what made it start. Like I don't know how.
Oh, the beginning of Cast On.
Yeah, like why you did it, why you sat down one day and was like, you know what I'm going to do? I think I'll do a knitting podcast.
Well, somebody told me about podcasts. And as soon as I heard about them, I went to find them. I listened and I thought, I can do this. It was less than a year after podcasts actually started. So I was a very early adopter. So it was like 2005, late 2005. I started doing the research and listening to lots of podcasts and planning what I would do. And I first envisioned it something like an audio knitting magazine, So there would be like a table of contents, and there would be it was going to be like the knitting magazine for your ears. That was how I first envisioned it. And it wasn't, I think it was not even the first season where I started really telling stories about how the knitting happened, telling stories about my life, telling stories about it turned into more personal journal than it was an actual, here's how I cast on this thing, here's how I knit this thing. Although there were sections where I focused seriously on the geekery of the knit stitch because I love that.
And spinning.
And spinning.
There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of geek spinning stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of spinning in there. But it was also just about how it felt to knit, how it felt to wear the things I knit, how it felt to be in Wales, which at the time I'd only lived here for like 5 years. So it was all still new and shiny and way different than where I came from. So it just became like a personal journal. That's how it started. And my son at the time was doing a music tech degree. So he got me set up with all the equipment. He basically brought me a mixer and plugged it into the computer, had me speak into a mic, fiddled with all the dials. This was like analog stuff that we were using at the time. And showed me how to run Audacity, my first podcast was, I think, probably about 30 minutes long. And I think it took me like 16 hours to edit. Today, I can do that job in about a half an hour. So I have gotten faster at the editing, which is good. But yeah, that's how it started. I studied I trained as a broadcast journalist when I was in the Army, which was like a lifetime ago. I'm in my 20s, was in the Army for a few years. And I was a broadcast journalist. So I've always been able to just talk and tell stories. I didn't realize I could do that until I started doing the podcast, really. I didn't start identifying as a storyteller until I started podcasting.
I just realized when you said podcasting was fairly new, and I thought, no, I've been listening to podcasts for a while, but they weren't. They were the sort of original podcasts were radio shows that had the ability to listen to them off at your own schedule
later. But like even the original This American Life,
that was one of the
they did not. You had 1 week. You had until the next show went out.
Right.
You had 1 week to download that file and actually give it a listen.
Right. Well, before
they weren't really podcasts at the time, there were about 10,000 podcasts in the whole world.
Yeah, because I think This American Life was one of the first ones that I listened to. Selected Shorts wasn't that far behind.
Not too far behind.
But This American Life, pre-podcast concept, I went through two insane things with them. One was there was a product called Radio Shark. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It was a piece of hardware and it looked like a shark's fin. That's why it was called Radio Shark. And you plugged it in to a radio, and then you plugged it into a cassette deck. And
it could record.
It was like the TiVo for radio. So not a cassette deck. No, your computer, right? Because it would actually do a digital file. And it was like, they called it TiVo for radio, but your radio had to be on and your computer had to be on. And you could program it. So if I was going to be out and I was going to miss This American Life, I could program it. And then I'd come back and there'd be an MP3 file on my computer.
Wow.
But before Radio Shark, This American Life sold cassettes of each episode for $10.
Each episode was $10?
Each episode, well, because they had to make the cassette and they had to ship it.
Yeah.
So I didn't discover This American Life until season 2, until the episode about the kid, the kids that find the man in the well.
Oh yeah.
And so I wrote to This American Life, and back then it was just like Ira and one other person. So for all I know, it was Ira that answered me, and I said, I'm going to make you a deal. Here's what I need. I need to catch up to all the episodes, but I'm missing about 35 episodes, and I can't pay you $350.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay you $100. You're going to ship me 10 cassettes at a time, and I'm going to then listen to them, and I'm going to ship them back to you. Of the 35, I will choose 10 that I will keep. That's what we're going to do.
That's the deal. Did they go for it?
Yeah. He was like, sounds fabulous.
You're kidding.
No.
There's
sent
no
me-
way that would happen today. That's
he
really
sent me
well.
10. I listened, I shipped back. So
So I'm really curious now. Okay. I have a couple of that I think are really memorable from that era. The one where they find the house that and the door that just like the doors just got locked and
okay, you want to hear something crazy?
yeah.
I know that family.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know I knew that family. But
Wow.
Nell Balaban, who's the composer that I introduced you to,
Yeah.
she became obsessed with that show, and she thought, oh, I think that should be a play or a musical. And so she looked into who it was, and she found out, oh my God, and she knows them too. Yeah, I'm not going to say who it was, but yeah, we actually know that family. I mean, we know the sister.
That for me was like the episode that was audio storytelling at its finest. Like I could see that house in my head. The description of the guy's glasses in the glasses case under layers of dust. And I mean, I was right there with them during that story. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, by the way, we don't know the family that disappeared. We know the kids. The kids that found the house. That's who we know.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. So I don't know the family that disappeared. So I don't know the secret. We still don't know why the family.
There's a story.
There's a story.
There's a story there.
Oh, I mean, there's so many. There's so many. That's what I love about storytelling. I love that driveway moments, which doesn't mean anything in New York when you don't drive, but the idea.
But you know what they are.
Yeah, it's the idea of listening to that story, and you get home and you're like, nope, I gotta sit in the car.
Get out of the car. I can't get out of the car. I know.
And so that same thing happened with Cast On. Happened with This American Life, which is I discovered it when it had already started, because it was I know exactly when it was, because it was the summer before I left for the first national tour of Jersey Boys. So it was the summer of 2006 or 2007. Wait, no, we opened November maybe it was the summer of 2007. And I sat up on my roof deck, and I found out how many episodes I had missed. And then I looked at my calendar of how many days off I had before I had to go on rehearsal. And I did make sure to sort of parse them out along with the new ones, because I didn't just want to binge and be like, oh, they're gone.
I know.
So I caught myself up that way.
That's hardcore, Patty. That's some hardcore fandom there, right? Thank you for that.
It was so great. It was just summer, and I was just knitting up in my roof garden with you in my ear. So there, it was great.
The salad days, the halcyon days. I know.
So by the way, before, someone was asking about how to find the feed, and you said something about the episode dropping and that I'll get it first. Okay, not just me.
Not just you.
Other people. So
although if you want me to send it to you when it's done, Patty, I'll just I can send you. You want to be first. If you
I'm just going to pretend I'm first. So explain the thing that I joined. Explain Patreon to the nice people.
I will. All right.
So I get my episode first.
Yeah. The reason why I came back is that Patreon, which is this fantastic way for fans of a artwork or a music or a podcast, for people who support the work to support the artist who makes the work. And Patreon came along I was about, maybe 8 years in, but it was only in the US. You had to have a US bank account to get a Patreon. And I didn't have a US bank account anymore. So I could not ask my fans to help support the podcast. I tried every way that I could possibly find to try and earn a living doing from this. I wanted to just make podcasts. Like that was my whole deal. But I couldn't make a living doing just podcasts because there was no way for people to pay me. There was no way for me to be supported doing this thing that I love. So I wrote patterns and I taught classes. And I traveled and did these tours across the US, and I went on cruises, and I went to Italy, and it was all really fun. And I loved meeting people, and it was a great time, but it took me away from doing the thing I love, which is making the podcast, telling the stories. So after working for it and making it not, I mean, like the hardest I worked had me away from home for like 16 weeks in 1 year. And I made 15,000 pounds that year. That was the hardest I'd ever worked, and traveling and being away from home for so long. It just was
fully aware.
Really, really hard way to make a living. So that point, I just kind of looked at it and said, I just can't do this anymore. It's too hard. So I went away and I did other things for 6 years. And then Patreon came back, and then the pandemic hit, and I started thinking just about making a couple, just coming back as a sort of, we're all in this together, just coming back for that, that was it. That was just the idea, was just to come back for a couple.
I didn't know that. For some reason, I thought like you had always planned this, but it took so while.
No.
I didn't know that COVID was part of the.
Oh, no. Oh. This was the thing. So that, so lockdown for us in the UK started in March.
Yeah.
I was finishing a job that it was like a 18-month contract, and the end was going to be in September. And over the summer, I started thinking about, what if I did go back to cast on? How would I do it? How would I, what do I want to do here? And I started considering the possibility of coming back and doing it full time again, and starting up a second podcast, which has long been on my list of things to do. I have another piece of work that I want to get, another body of stories that I want to talk about.
Which is that giant paper behind you?
That's like 40 of them. Okay. Yes, the giant list on the door behind me is season 1. That's the first year of the magnum opus of stories. Oh, so that's the story. That's how I came back. Because Patreon exists, I set up my little Patreon page, and I waited, heart in my mouth, to see whether or not I still had fans who would come up and support the work. I opened the doors, and they came.
And you really just started. So,
yes, I launched the Patreon page in September. And
yeah, but the podcast just started. So like other podcasts that I listen to, like the one I sent you, Ologies, she's not shy. She begins every episode with thanking her Patreons and reminding people how to join. She ends every episode with you're only a couple episodes in. So once you start,
yeah, I think I put out like 3 episodes in October, and then I had that little mental health issue over the month of November, which I know we're all familiar with. But I feel like I'm back on track. I actually got a good day of working today, so it's good. And then now I have people who are supporting, and it's great. I don't make quite enough yet. I think 500 patrons is kind of the sweet spot, and anything from there on is enough to let me begin the new work and hire the people that I need to help get the new work out into the world. And would you like to know about it?
The giant piece of paper behind you?
Giant piece of paper behind me. Okay. There is a book that I discovered in the early 80s. It was my friend Lisa and I. We loved Metropolitan Home magazine. Do you remember that magazine? It was like one of the first lifestyle magazines. We loved it. And they did a spread on this home that got built in Albany, California. The architect was a man named Chris Alexander. And in the 70s, he had written a book called A Pattern Language. And in this book, he broke down from the macro to the micro how the built environment can best support human life and creativity. And he did this through 253 of what he called patterns. And you start with the nation states, and this is how big a town should be. The maximum size should be around 7,000 people, and towns should be set up like this, and there should be bodies of still water, and all the way down till you get into the home. This is how people should live in a home. Pools of light, columns at the corners of things. I was entranced with this book. I read the article. I went straight to the library and found A Pattern Language. They had like 10 copies. It was on permanent loan from the Multnomah County Library for like 5 years. I just kept renewing it. It had to be on my shelf. I have recommended it to more people than I can count. It's a wonderful book. And what's great about it is you can pick up the book, open it anywhere, and at the beginning of a pattern, it will tell you all of the patterns that inform the one you're reading. And at the end of this pattern, 2 or 3 pages, it'll tell you all of the patterns coming later on in the book that are informed by the one that you've read. So it's like a choose your own adventure book. You just pick it up and you can follow a string of patterns through the entire book, and they're all absolutely wonderful. So this piece of work that I'm contemplating doing, 253 patterns, if I did one a week, it would take over 5 years. And I can't do one a week for 5 years. So I'm probably going to do like 40 a year and then take a summer off.
And are you going to combine patterns into one,
No.
like pattern
No.
1, 2? No.
253 patterns in the book, 253 podcasts. That's the work.
All righty.
So the name of this is called Sleeping in Public. It's pattern number 94 in the book. And sleeping in public is my favorite pattern in the book. Let me tell you why. Sleeping in public says that there should be places in the world where people can sleep and where people are not afraid to let people sleep. It's about trust. Right now, if you or I wanted to sleep in public, we would risk, our safety. And we consider people who sleep in public to be vagrants.
I guess I live in a slightly different land, because
I
New York
know.
is the only place that, yes, you legitimately sleep in public, and that's okay. Everyone sleeps on the subway, and you're totally safe, and it's considered legit because we're tired and we're busy.
But in this country, in the UK, sleeping in public is vagrancy. You can't even, there are only places where you can rough camp legally, just a very few in the UK.
Wow.
You can't just roll out a sleeping bag, crawl into a bivy bag, or set up a little tent and hike your way across the Cambrian Way. I mean, it's illegal. And it's not that way for every country. And I love the idea that it's about trust. It's about it being okay to sleep in public and safe, and okay to allow people, safe to allow people. It's about, I think it appeals to our better nature as humans. That's what it's about. It appeals to who we can be as a society. And that's why I love that pattern. And that's why that's why the podcast is called Sleeping in Public.
Jennifer commented, and I agree with this, and at airports. That is the other place
that is a place where it's safe.
Contract. I just feel like it is a social contract amongst travelers. If you see someone who's just on the floor, with their purse under their head, but their bag just next to them, they're safe and no one bothers them. That's the social contract of travelers.
That's true. Even at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, they have one whole section at the end of the airport that has lounge chairs, and the ceiling is slightly lower and it's quiet. And I mean, there's a few little sounds you can get from sort of like the bar down below, but it's up on a second level. And if you're lucky enough to get one of those lounge chairs and sleep for a couple of hours in between, I thought that was so civilized when I first found it. Amazing. And you're right. It's part of the social contract that no one will bother you.
And I think there are certain social contracts in New York. It's a hard place to live. And so there are 2 things that are okay, and New Yorkers do, that I guess I never really thought about, but that other people don't do. We sleep in public and we cry in public. And that is something New Yorkers do, and it's something that other New Yorkers give you space to do.
So you're left alone. You're left alone.
You're left alone. There's very few, if you're crying on the subway, a bunch of people aren't going to come up to you and say, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" You might, there might be an eye contact to see, are you physically hurt? Do you need help? But otherwise there's a space, because we live outside our homes. We leave our home at the beginning of the day. And that's why people make, jokes about the bags that we carry. They're very, very large in New York.
Yeah.
Because you have everything in your bag. It takes a long time to get places. So you generally leave it early in the morning. You might not come back until late at night, which means when you don't have a car to go sit inside a car and cry if something bad happened, if you got bad news.
Yeah.
So yeah, we cry in public and you're left alone.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. I'm not sure if British people, I'm not sure if that would be true of London. I mean, I know it's similar, it's like an hour and a half to get anywhere. I mean, it just takes a long time to go places and you have to carry a bag. But British people are much more reserved. So I'm not sure they would cry.
They don't cry in private, for God's sake.
They do. They do. They're not made of stone, but it is a much more reserved, I'll never forget my parents visiting and I introduced my mother to one of the neighbors and she just walked up and started to hug Val. Who just looked like, what is happening here? I mean, she got into it. It was okay. My mom was like, I feel like I know you already. It was the first time that I had seen, I guess, the Americanness of someone else as they encountered the Britishness or the Welshness, the reserve of this country, the surprise that it was.
Yeah.
It was really sweet.
I
never said a word to my mom about it. I never told her,
Yeah, you can often see whatever group you're in, your family, your friends, your town, your nation, whatever, clearer through the eyes of someone else seeing it. And then you're like, oh, I never thought of that, well, that's how we are. Huh, yeah, interesting.
Oh, I just got a notification of a Patreon sign up. Was it someone? Was it someone? Thank you.
Someone here? Oh, Linda says, Brenda, I have the same haircut, a result of social distancing.
Fantastic. Isn't it easy? I have not used product in like 5 years. And all my earrings are statement earrings. I love that so much.
Oh, now we have an answer about London. Ashley says, I feel the same. I feel it's very similar culture in London. I've cried while reading on the Underground many times, and it's largely ignored. Though there was one time I was hysterically crying. It was a very sad book. And a bunch of drunk ladies handed me tissues.
Oh.
Now that's the other funny thing about podcasts on the subway. People, if you want a seat by yourself, do laugh at nothing and people will give you space. So I always thought, like, when I'm listening to David Sedaris or the late great David Rakoff on the subway, and they're just making me laugh hysterically, and my hair is long, so people can't necessarily see that I have, you're just sitting there laughing by yourself. You get a seat by yourself.
You know the way to do that on a British train? Carry a can of lager. You don't have to open it. A can of lager on the tray table at 10 o'clock in the morning. No one will sit next to you.
Just the very threat.
Just the very thought that you are one of the people who would crack a can of lager at 10 o'clock in the morning. You can get one of those like two facing, a whole table that's got like a booth basically on a train. And if you put a can of lager down there, you get the whole thing. Plug in your iPad, spread out the knitting. My friend Julie taught me that trick.
Definitely clipping your toenails on the subway. You get it.
No one
which happens. That happens. I years ago, I wrote a subway blog post about, I think it was called Overheard on the Subway, because I would get so annoyed that tourists would like talk about us while we're right here. We can hear you. We can literally hear you, saying, look at these people and don't touch the pole and like wear your backpack in front, like we can hear you. And you were safe until you said that. And now I want to cut you.
I'd forgotten you have a dark side.
Do I have a light side?
No,
not really. Not today. I'm in a very bad place today. Today is not a good day in Pattyland. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Yes, we love to avoid anyone who has the potential to be rowdy.
That's true.
These are good tips.
Although that's probably, is that in London?
Yeah.
Because when you cross the Severn Bridge or go under the Severn, as the case may be, if you're on the rail, things change. The Welsh girls are loud. They frequently will take a train to, and it'll be like a hen party. So there'll be like 19 of them, and they're loud and drinking at 10 o'clock. It's there, that river, the Severn Bridge, the Severn itself, there's the divide. There really is in the behavior between, like, behavior that you wouldn't see in London.
Now this is
in Wales. They're just very open. It's a very open people, you know.
This is the
They like their fun and they like a drink.
Wrong country, but it just reminded me. I only just discovered this, and now I'm so sad that we've watched it all, and thanks to COVID, the third season is delayed. But have you watched Dairy Girls?
No, I haven't. I've heard it's on my list. It's on my list.
Delightful.
Is it okay? I'm going to ask a couple of questions because I really have, like, my window of what I can, like, comfort view has narrowed considerably. Okay. Like, there's no blood, no gore, no horror.
No, this is funny. This is
okay. Funny I can take.
This is
okay. Creek. I had never watched. I had now.
Wait, which one?
Schitt's Creek.
Oh God, I love that show.
Yeah, we totally binged that, and I think we might be on the third rewatch. It's just like a comfort go-to now.
It's like,
no spoilers, because if somebody hasn't watched it, you should.
It's just a shot of goodness in your arm. That's all it is. It's just
so good,
pure.
Yeah, like, I turned a friend on here.
Kindness. Just
my friend Felix. I turned her onto it, and she just ordered a ton. I think she said a metric shit ton or fuck ton. Can't remember.
Now we've lost our suitable for all audience tag, and it's gone. That's okay. This is live TV, yo. I'm telling. As soon as it goes live, I'm gonna get the little. I'm gonna get the tag.
Sorry,
we are not. Because you dropped the F down. We're not suitable for all audiences anymore.
I said fork.
Too late. Too late. It's all.
All right.
Crying.
Metric fork ton of black and white yarn was the point of the story, is that she's knitting an ode to David Rose's knitwear.
Aww.
She's designing some amazing black and white.
Well, no, you will love Dairy Girls. It's about a group of high school girls in Londonderry. It's in the 80s. It's near the end of the Troubles. So they're getting close to the end. So I don't know the exact year. So that's like the backdrop, which is a serious topic, but it's not, it's just the backdrop of these girls' lives.
Okay.
And they're hilarious.
Okay.
And the nun in the Catholic school.
All right. I'll give it a watch. I will.
It's so funny. And it's half hour. It's a confection. It's a little bite of something before bed that is just, I miss them already. Yes, see, we got a second. Leslie says Dairy Girls is hilarious. It is. It's just
okay. All right. Thank you. I'll bump it up the list. It sounds good.
Wait, now we have another recommendation from Nina. If you like Dairy Girls, I think you would like Raised by Wolves. Ooh, okay.
Is this a Netflix thing?
No, she caught it on Acorn. I don't have any of those. Oh, but you know what? I do have a VPN that I can set to the UK, and I can get into some of those other channels. That's how I watched the new, I've already forgotten the name of it, but there was that mini series by Julian Fellows, the guy that did.
I know he is.
So he had one, but that you could only get on the BBC. Oh, more serious, but really good. Queen's Gambit. We just finished it 2 nights ago.
I haven't finished it yet. I think I have like 2 episodes to go.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. Yes. Spectacular.
Production values. Do you know what that one makes me remember? It made me
lighting. Oh.
I know. Awesome. Queen's Gambit gave me the same kind of feels that I got from
Belgravia. That's it.
The Goldfinch.
Oh, yes, I
In
know.
that you're watching a character that you care about make a series of wrong choices, like again and again, and you just want so much better for them.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't like
that's
to
that's
think of them as wrong choices. I think of those were the choices that she had to make. You can't pull a thread from a quilt. Those
that's
are the choices she had to make to get to the place that she got. If she made a different choice, she wouldn't have gone there.
okay. Don't tell me where she got because I'm like 2 episodes. I have 2 episodes to go in Queen's Gambit.
I just
So
think
at this point, the
unless you end up dead, you can't pull a thread from a quilt and still have the same quilt. So
that is true.
that it is what it is. But oh my God, the costumes are spectacular. The lighting is amazing. Just the whole art direction is
I
I love
agree.
that one. I know I was sad when that one ended. I was sad to leave that world in a different way than the utter heartbreak to leave Schitt's Creek, because that was like leaving my family.
Yeah.
I miss them. I miss them all the time.
Rewatch, start from season one. I love the idea that the whole thing started with just what if the Kardashians had lost all their money?
Yeah.
That was the inception for this,
Yeah.
That's where it came from. And the fact that they managed to talk Catherine O'Hara into doing it was brilliant. The bizarre accent, where does that come from?
That came from her. So a ton, if you watch any of the extras, and do watch the extras, there's so many extras on Netflix, you'll see how much she brought to the table. The wigs, that was her. She asked for that.
Yeah.
She brought a lot to the table.
She made me consider wigs. I don't know if I want, like I'm in the active wanting stage, but she did make me consider them, you know? Maybe when I stop having hot flashes, I'll go for the wig. Because she wore like a green one day, like a mint green,
Yeah.
and then silver jewelry. I'm reevaluating the large necklace as
I
like
can't
the
do it.
statement jewelry.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that again. Yeah.
Do you
I
remember?
think I could pull off a Moira Rose. I do.
Oh yeah, you could totally rock a Moira. Do
Yeah.
you remember? And another show I'm watching right now is the Americans, and it's funny because it's starring the now grown up woman that was a teenage girl who did an American television show called Felicity. Do you remember that TV show? It was I don't know, on in the 90s, and she's a NYU student. Now the weird like coincidence is now in the American she plays a spy, right? There was another American TV show called Alias, starring Jennifer Gardner. And where Alias came from, because the same creator is the showrunner for Felicity. So where Alias came from is a session in the writer's room of Felicity where they just had a bit of writer's block. They're kicking around story ideas for the next year. And someone said, okay, what if she's not an NYU student, but she's actually a spy? Right. And everyone laughs. And the showrunner for Felicity is like, okay,
This could work.
that's what Alias is. So Alias, we first meet Jennifer Gardner. She's
That's really cool.
a college student who then becomes a spy. So there you go.
That's very cool.
All right. Oh my God, it is 3 o'clock, and I have so many patterns to fix and so many more video tutorials to shoot because the new pattern part is supposed to drop on Sunday. None of the videos are edited. I still have 5 videos to shoot, and I still have 6 tutorials to write. So
You
before
are very, very busy and important.
it's,
I let you go.
I am the former for sure.
Yeah.
Not so much the latter. But anyway,
I think you're very important.
oh, you're adorable. So for me and the other person that just pinged that is a Patreon, I like to say I get the episode tomorrow, right?
Midnight tomorrow. So I'll upload it and it'll go. Tomorrow's Thursday, right?
Tomorrow, God help me. Tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow's Thursday. I have I got to teach. I have to teach tonight. I have a teacher training tomorrow. I was going to, every time I try to have a weekend where I'm like, you know what? we're going to go to Brooklyn. We're going to go to the Time Out Market and the Bryant Park Holiday Fair. I'm probably going to be glued to my computer again. Oh, I'm getting depressed just
All
thinking.
right. So you're depressing yourself. Let's
I know
not
I
end.
am trying to get this
Okay.
pattern part up.
So this is really important.
So we get, the Patreons get it tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow at midnight, my time. So
So
when you wake up on Friday morning,
for
it'll be there.
those of you out there who are like, wait, I want it tomorrow. I don't wish to wait.
Okay.
I will put the link, although you don't even have to wait for the link because clearly you found it on your own. Just Google Brenda Dayne and boom, you're there. I will put the link.
Patreon.com, Brenda Dayne. That's it.
Oh, that's it?
Patreon.com/Brenda Dayne.
Oh, how clever of them.
I know, they're good.
That's very easy.
Yes.
So for those of you who are jealous of me getting it tomorrow,
You personally,
me personally, you all know how you can get the episode.
yeah.
So there.
And lots of other goodies too. I mean, now that my first round of lighting has arrived and I have more lighting coming, I'm doing some live streams myself for the patrons. And also I do these little things called audio postcards where I go around and like record something from my world, take a picture, boom, upload. It's just a couple of minutes of something like buying milk from the farm, from their vending machine. And I just recorded the sound of like the milk vending machine and the bottles. And I mean, it is really cool. You know, I buy my milk from the farm. It was in the cow that morning. It's very cool. And it's keeping the farm going. You know, before this, he was ready to sell. Now he's got cows and he's happy. So I just go around my, you know, things around my neighborhood, go for walks by the stream, record the little snippets, go down to the beach, sit there, record the sea, talk for a bit about the old guy fishing off the pier, audio postcards. So that's a thing too. And you get them early. You get them early if you're a patron.
Oh, and you know what I forgot? Didn't I record something with you?
Yeah, so you'll be the first week of December. Your episode is up the first week of December.
Tell me in advance so I know?
Yeah, I just did.
Oh, don't make me remember.
Okay.
You're going to email me, right? Because I got to like remind people to listen to the show, but I'm not going to remember. Do you have any? No, there's no way I will remember anything from the moment I stop this.
It's going to be all sweater, all video, all everything. So, you know, you have a lot of people that are there listening, and I am sure that one of them is going to call you, email you, and tell you that on the 3rd of December, I will upload it. So midnight, Friday, early Friday morning, if you're a patron, Friday the 4th of December, or Saturday the 5th for everyone else.
Wait, is that real? Why do I think? Oh, third. Did you say Wednesday's the 2nd, right? Yeah,
Wednesday's the 2nd. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always set them to go at midnight on the Friday morning, basically.
I only know that because that is a brutal week for me because I'm teaching a class the night of the 2nd. Then I'm teaching at Christy Glass's event on the 3rd and the 4th. Then I'm teaching at a yarn shop on the 5th. And then I have like
you are very busy and important. I told you.
That is
you are one of the hardest working knitwear designers in the biz, my girl.
And I have the Zoom. I have a knit group for the Cal for the knit along on the 29th. So basically I have like 2 days in between. It's going to be, that is a brutal week.
You know,
do
you remember that scene in The Princess Bride where he talks about all the torturing he has to do?
Yes.
And, you know, if you don't have your health, you need to look after yourself. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. I'm serious. Take a break, girl.
Good luck storming the castle. Okay.
Good luck storming the castle.
We're going to go, but before we go, everybody here knows that, and it's a 30-second delay, so I always give them a warning that we always have a certain saying that we say to each other as we send ourselves off into the world. And usually I'm sending people off to the world just for a week and a half, but I'm taking 2 weeks off because I did the back-to-back episodes here. So we're taking 2 weeks off. So everybody, you know what to type. As we say goodbye, we say to each other, wash your hands, don't touch your face, wear a mask, knit on. So
that's great. I love that.
That is what I have to say to all of you. So now I have to get, where's the thing to, okay, here we go. Goodbye. Thank you guys so much. I will
Thank
see
you.
all in 2 weeks.
Bye. Thank